Hi, it's the SonsofLibertas again. We are still at the European Students for Liberty conference in Berlin, and we are here with Flemming Rose. He's a Danish author and journalist. He's the foreign editor of Jyllands-Posten, a Danish magazine, and author of The Tyranny of Silence, which is published 2010. Good to be here with you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Nice to meet you. So 2005, your magazine published a series of Muhammad cartoons, and well, that's basically why you've become such a designated advocate of free speech. Like you're going around Europe and telling about the advantages of free speech. What happened exactly in 2005?
Well, in 2005, we had a debate in Denmark about the problem of self-censorship when dealing with Islam. There was a children's book about the life of the Prophet Muhammad that was being published for kids. And you do have illustrations in a children's book. And the writer and the author of this book said in public that he had written this book, but it was difficult for him to find an illustrator. And according to him, several illustrators said no thank you because they were afraid of what might happen to them. That was the starting point, and there were two questions. Yeah. Was this writer telling the truth? Was self-censorship in fact a case, a fact? Okay. Because there were people who were saying no, there's no self-censorship. So that was one question. The other question was, if it's true that there is self-censorship, is it based in the imagination? Is it just a product of our fantasy, a perceived fear? Or is it based in real fact? And today, 9 years later, we have to say that both these questions were answered in the affirmative. Yes, there is self-censorship in Europe when it comes to dealing with Islam, and the fear is based in fact. People were being killed in Paris and in Copenhagen because they made cartoons that some Muslims find offensive, and in Copenhagen a young man attacked a public debate about blasphemy and free speech. So it is a problem.
Okay, so you went to test this out and you really discovered the whole problem. In the follow-up to the reactions to the cartoons, how did your personal life change? I mean, we now seen your security guards. It's like checkups like at airport security. How did this affect you?
Well, you know, I don't exactly like it. It's pretty annoying, and it adds pressure, of course. It creates a lot of inconvenience for people around me and also for myself. But you know, if that's the case, I have to deal with it, and I'm not going to give in. I mean, I'm not going to say, you know, let me move out into the countryside and let me leave my job and apologize and say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. No, I mean, I didn't ask for this fight. It was enforced upon me. But free speech is something that I really believe in. I spent a lot of time in the Soviet Union. My wife is Russian. I studied Russian language and literature. I had a lot of friends among dissidents in the Soviet Union, and they really, you know, informed my outlook on these things. And I saw what self-censorship can do to a society in the Soviet Union. So I find this is very important. It is important to me as an individual. It is about what I believe in. It is what makes life worth living. So if I should give in on this, I would really refute and deny a very important dimension of my own identity. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah. So basically, what's your take on free speech? What's the things we should be allowed to say? Like, where are the taboos, the boundaries, where we can say, okay, that's legally allowed. Where's the line for you?
I mean, the key question is, you know, what kind of limitations do we need on speech in order to be able to live together in peace in a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious society. And to me, the key limitations is incitement to violence. No one should be allowed to go out in Alexanderplatz and yell, go out and kill all the Muslims, or go out and kill all the Jews, kill all the Hertha Berlin fans, or whatever. That shouldn't be allowed. But that is the key limitation. Apart from that, I think there should be very few limitations on speech. And it implies that we have to accept that we do not have a right not to be offended. We have to accept that the price we pay for living in a liberal democracy is, especially in a diverse society, is that there will be people of other persuasions, people committing themselves to other ideologies, other religions, other systems of thoughts that we find offensive. And we have to live with that. We have to accept that as the price for living in a liberal democracy and enjoying the benefits of liberty. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Too many people think that it is legitimate or it is understandable that people react violently when their religious sensibilities are offended. I mean, there are people who really believe that I deserve, you know, what's been brought upon me. Even, you know, Danes with whom I've had public discussions, and I think that it's really a misunderstanding and a distortion of the concept of tolerance in Europe.
So, what do you think is the motivation or the thoughts behind people who want to restrict free speech in order to, like, people not to be offended? Or
well, I think there are two things. One is fear. It's not, you know, it's not very nice to be afraid. Very few people will admit that they are afraid. It's not very heroic, you know, of editors in Europe who do not publish Muhammad cartoons to say, you know, I don't do it because I'm afraid, even though I think it's legitimate. And people should be more honest about it. The other thing is a misunderstood interpretation of what it means to be nice. You want to be nice, and therefore you should not say things that may be offensive. And I agree that you should not offend people just for the sake of offending them. But I think that in a multicultural society where we are getting more and more different, we don't know, you know, what may be offensive. I don't know what may be offensive to you. You don't know what may be offensive to me. And that means that I may say something that you don't like, that you find offensive. But we have to accept that, as I said, the price we have to pay for living in a liberal democracy and enjoying the benefits of freedom. Unfortunately, many people who are afraid, they are explaining their fear, you know, with politeness. We should be polite. You shouldn't offend. You shouldn't say things like that. And I think it is distorting our debate, because what I'm seeing now in Western Europe is some of the same mechanisms that I saw in the Soviet Union. I'm not saying, you know, that Western Europe is becoming the Soviet Union. That's not the case. But the mechanisms of a fear society is starting to make its influence on Western Europe. That is that you refrain from saying and doing things because you are afraid of what might happen to you. And when we are dishonest about our motives, we say we pretend that there isn't any fear. But there is, and we have to talk about it, whether we want to live in a fear society or in a free society.
So, with like events such as the attacks in Paris at the beginning this year, what do you think will the public reactions to it be, and how will this influence the legal and political environment of free speech? And will it like bring us more freedom and more liberty, or will it push us back?
I hope so, that it will bring us more freedom and liberty, but I'm not so sure. Unfortunately, the jury is still out. And if you take the attack in Paris and the very moving event, Sunday, January 11, when 4 million people in France, more than 1 million in Paris, took to the streets and in a action of solidarity with the victims at Charlie Hebdo, and some of these people were my friends, so it was very personal, and I was very happy for the kind of support they received, but I was very skeptical at the same time, because the outpouring of these emotions in Paris reminded me a little bit of what you can call a Diana moment, when Princess Diana was killed in 1997. You had this grief as a national event, even though a lot of people didn't know her. And some of the same kind of emotional outpour was what I saw in Paris. And I think in the aftermath, it's clear that, that even though there was this act of solidarity, it is not being followed up by support for Charlie Hebdo and for what they are doing. You see self-censorship now in France. You see this, yes, we are in favor of free speech, but you see the French government arresting people for glorification of terror instead of supporting free speech. So I think the battle in the aftermath of the attack in Paris and in Copenhagen is about what individuals like you and I, editors, museum directors, movie directors, writers, publishing houses, what they do in their day-to-day life. What kind of decisions are they going to make? Are they going to make when it comes to deciding whether to publish something or not publishing something, whether to say something or refrain from saying something? I mean, that's where this battle is either lost or won.
Okay, thank you very much for the interview. We wish you our very best for your fight in the battle for more freedom and more free speech, and well, hope we'll meet again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It's very kind of you. Thank you.
Okay, super.
Giga Tea, crowdfunding for you and me.